The vibration of my phone against the nightstand didn't just wake me, it rattled my teeth. It was 3:14 a.m. That hollow, liminal hour where the world feels thin and the shadows in the corner of the room seem to have more substance than the furniture. I reached for the device with a groan, expecting a telemarketer from a different time zone or a wrong number. Instead, I saw a name that turned my blood into slush. Liam. My brother had been missing for exactly 21 days. His car had been found idling on the shoulder of a bridge 3 towns over, the driver's side door flung wide to the wind. His wallet and keys still in the ignition, but his phone and his body had vanished into the autumn mist. The police had already begun using the past tense when they spoke of him, yet there his name was glowing in the dark, pulsating with a life it shouldn't have had. I answered on the 3rd ring, my voice a jagged shard of hope and terror as I whispered his name into the receiver. But the response wasn't a hello. It was a sound like wet leather being dragged over gravel, a rhythmic, labored breathing that sounded thick with fluid. The silence on the other end felt heavy, a physical weight pressing against my ear. I begged him to speak, to tell me where he was, but the line only crackled with a strange, rhythmic interference that sounded like the ticking of a grandfather clock submerged in water. Then, the voice came through. It was Liam's voice, but it was distorted, as if the words were being squeezed through a throat that had forgotten how to shape them. "It's so dark under the floor, Sarah," he wheezed. My breath hitched. We didn't have a basement in our childhood home. We lived on a slab of concrete. But, as he spoke, I realized he wasn't talking about the past. He began to describe the room I was currently sitting in, the peeling wallpaper by the window, the way my closet door never quite shut all the way, the exact height of the pile of laundry I'd neglected. He told me he was watching the way my hand was shaking. He spooned around, scanning the darkness of my bedroom, but I was alone. Then, the metallic clink-clink-clink of a chain dragging across would echoed not through the phone, but from directly beneath my bed. The terror that followed was a cold, paralyzing wave. Through the phone, I heard him whisper that the tall man didn't like it when he used the phone, but he had to tell me where the rest of him was. He started reciting coordinates, but they weren't geographic. There were rooms in my house, 3 paces from the fridge, under the tile, 2 feet from the bathtub, behind the drywall. The police had checked my house a dozen times during the investigation, but they were looking for a person, not a secret. As the line began to dissolve into a high-pitched electronic scream, he said one last thing that made me drop the phone. "He's tired of hiding in the walls, Sarah. He wants to sit in the chair." I looked at the armchair in the corner of my room. It was empty, but the velvet cushion was slowly depressing, as if an invisible weight were settling into it. The phone call ended with a sharp click, leaving me in a silence so profound it felt like a scream. I spent the rest of the night huddled in the center of my bed, the flashlight of my phone pointed at that armchair. Every house creak sounded like a footstep. Every gust of wind sounded like a whispered name. When the sun finally bled through the curtains, I didn't feel safe. I felt watched. I took a hammer to the kitchen tile Liam had mentioned, driven by a manic, sleep-deprived necessity. Beneath the 3rd tile from the fridge, I didn't find a body. I found a small, digital recorder, still warm to the touch, and a single tuft of Liam's hair. I realized then that the call hadn't been from the other side or a ghost. Someone had been inside my house for 3 weeks, weaving a nightmare out of my grief and my walls. They had used Liam's phone, his voice, and his proximity to break me. And as I looked up from the hole in my floor, I noticed the attic hatch in the hallway was slightly, almost imperceptibly, ajar.